Facebook loses some of that share, though. Apple is rolling out that update to iOS 14 that is going to make it much harder for Facebook to track users on iOS devices. And basically, the two are kind of sparring right now, with Facebook saying this is a bad thing. This is going to affect advertisers' ability to get better CPMs and more relevant ads to your face holes. And Apple says, well, people are more than welcome to have the most relevant ads to their face holes. They just have to opt into it now. So, yeah, I'm with Apple on this one, personally. I mean, it's also great for me because all of our digital advertising is around, building an audience that we kind of know what you guys are into, and then talking to you directly about that stuff, instead of doing it in like a scummy, listening to your microphone on your phone way. So yeah, I love it. If we could have a return to people just watching the content that they watch and getting served, ads or sponsors or whatever that's relevant to that, it seems like a good step backwards to me. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, speaking of which, lttstore.com. We've actually got nothing to really call out this week other than to say thank you guys very much for your support. We sold through almost all 17,000 mouse pads that we ordered. I thought 17,000 mouse pads was a lot. I thought it was crazy. There's only a couple of sizes left, so if you guys want to get one, they're there, but not for long. We have more coming, but probably not until late February to mid-March, sometime in that time frame. The good news, though, is that stealth hoodies are restocked, water bottles are restocked in all colors, and we have a bunch of graphic tees back in stock. We've still got lots of toques. We've still got lots of CPU pillows and tons of board books. I wish we had user reviews for the board books because all of the feedback I've seen about it so far has been incredible. I just wish there was another place where I could just go sit and get my ego boost from reading people's comments on the board book. I've even had people sending me pictures, like tagging me on Twitter with like them reading it to their baby and stuff. As someone for whom child literacy is such a big deal, it's just heartwarming for me to see people it doesn't matter what it's about. Like that's the biggest lesson when it comes to child literacy. It doesn't matter what your kid's reading. Just make sure they're reading. If it's like a Pokemon, what's that stupid Pokemon book that our eldest used to just sit and read for hours on end?
A cartoon.
I don't remember. It was like basically like a Creaturepedia of like Pokemon. It's like this is not intellectual reading material by any stretch of the imagination. But for me, it was just exciting to see him with his nose buried in a book for hours on end, because that's the building block. That's foundational.
Yeah, so, they can go somewhere from there pretty easily. At least they're learning the process of reading and whatnot.
Exactly. So it's really exciting to me. Honestly, I've had people both internally and externally ask me, like when's the ABCs of computers, like, because we already did ABCs of gaming, and I'm kind of looking for a new challenge. I wouldn't mind doing something that's more like story driven, but I haven't really decided yet. So
like a choose your own adventure game, like choose your own adventure book. Sorry,
no, not like that. Something more like with actual characters and like the computer family or something, gamer family. I don't know what it would be, but where it has life lessons, but sort of more related to gaming and technology. How Bernstein Bears will have like a fun, like it tells a story, but there's always like a lesson, don't judge people based on their appearances. So you can even have a lesson that's just like, don't pre-order things.
You'll win.
Obviously, you'd want to frame it more. No, I'm serious though. You'd want to frame it. Yeah, you'd want to frame it more in like a kid sort of friendly way. Like, you could have a lesson about like loot boxes as well. So they could go and they could learn that if they waste all their allowance money on this, they're going to end up disappointed, when what they could have done is they could have just bought something that they knew was going to make them happy in the first place, instead of gambling. Like, so having like anti-gambling messaging, just like sort of
That's like a
pro-consumer.
story of jealousy too, because like if they got too jealous and wanted to buy some cosmetic box in a game, they don't even get the thing that their friends, because their friends are all playing this other game, but they can't afford to buy it or something.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that would be pretty neat. I've got time for like two super chats. Ilya, you sent like three of them, so I'll respond to one of yours. Yes, we're going to include the THX Pandas in the review of the AirPods Max. Yes. Philip, paying for some shirts that got refunded before they arrived. Go LTT store. Oh, okay. Thanks, Philip. Maybe we thought it was lost in shipping or something like that. Thanks for sending that over. Melody says DualShock has been doing reliable low latency Bluetooth since 2006. Define low latency. Like, I guarantee you it's not like sub 1 millisecond latency. So if you want to talk about like Bluetooth audio and performance being, not low latency enough, yeah, that's a different game. Thanks, Christian Isaac. Thanks, Andy Boy Pabble. Gamers Nexus apparently sent some people over to the stream. That's cool. Thanks, Steve. And that's it. Thank you guys very much for tuning in to the WAN Show. We will see you again next week. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Bye.
Is the WAN Show over?
And oh right, I gotta click this button.
We might have to go over to.
Okay, hold on a second. Claptrap. The Bearstein Bears teaching kids how the Mandela effect works. Okay, it's Bernstein. It's Sta인. I thought it was Bernstein for years, but that is actually not how it's spelled. I know nobody says it like that, but I don't make the rules. All right, see you later.
I wonder where it started.
It just looks like that. I don't know.
Let's go see what Lewis has to say about slave labor.
Billionaire. They are hiring subcontractors that. Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I'd like to do a video on something that we have, honestly I think most of us have already known to some extent, but it's something that we conveniently ignore, which is that there are many companies that are using slave labor in the production of their products and services, and we keep buying them, and we don't. And I think I'm going to try and tie this in a little bit with right to repair. So there was a news story in Bloomberg recently about Apple's push in India dealt setback as protest turns violent. I'm a little annoyed at Bloomberg for the journalism they did here, because I like to hear both sides of the story. So when there's some sort of riot or violence, I'm really interested in what caused it. I want to hear both sides. I'll make my own decision. I'll have my own opinion on it, but please give me all of the information so that I may form my own opinion. They say there's been $7.1 million in damage at Wistron. Wistron is one of those places that's producing Apple products like iPhones and so on and so forth, similar to Foxconn. And they said this year, Apple iPhone assemblers were among the companies on track to win approval to participate in a $6.6 billion stimulus program. This, India is really looking to get more of this business as people leave China when it comes to manufacturing. And they have a video over here that they show you. And you can see that these workers are fairly angry and aggravated. This is not the scene that I would want to walk into at Rossmann Repair. You have people bashing shit, they're screaming at the top of their lungs, they are destroying everything, they are destroying cameras. There are many videos similar to this one on the internet that you'll be able to find with a quick Google search. Wistron said in its own statement that it's committed to following and implementing all local labor regulations and will resume production as soon as it's possible to protect employees' right to work. Because that's the concern here. Clearly, the employees that you see in this video are very concerned about protecting their right to work. Now, if you continue reading down, you'll even see China throwing some shade here, because remember, they're moving their operations from China to India. And it says, in China, where Apple suppliers are among the country's largest private employers with upwards of 1 million people assembling gear from iPhones to Macs, state media wasted no time in highlighting the troubles in India. This is a potential risk when manufacturers consider moving their production lines out of China, where they have the most stable labor market, supporting the nation to become the largest manufacturing hub. One reporter at the country's Global Times said on Twitter. Let me translate that for you. See, unlike India, where they don't know how to keep their slaves in line, in China, we know how to keep our slave labor in line. That's what they're really saying here. I said I was disappointed in Bloomberg because, it's a $40 a month subscription, and they've given me one side of the story. They've shown me the damage that's been done. They have shown me the riots and the protests, but they haven't really given you as much context into why they're mad. For that, you have to go to the Times of India, which, unlike Bloomberg, has no paywall. So if you take a look at the Times of India, you'll have video of the riots and the protests and the destroying everything, while simultaneously they'll give you a little bit more context into why it's happening. Now, once you get the context, you'll start to understand it. So there's two separate issues that need to be focused on here. The first is the salaries that are being offered, and the second is the fact that those salaries will be decreased as time goes on. So it's not simply that the salary is low that is causing the rioting and the protesting. It is the fact that the salary is low and then cut from there more than 50% in some cases, and seemingly 95% in other cases over here. So it says, while an engineering graduate was promised Rs $21,000 a month, his or her salary was reduced to $16,000 and then $12,000 in recent months. Non-engineering graduates' month's salary had been reduced to 8,000 rupees. The salary amount being credited to our accounts has been reducing and was frustrating to see this, an employee alleged. On Friday night, employees started discussing their salaries on the floors, and some alleged they had only received as low as 500 rupees in their bank accounts. The anger turned to violence by the time the shift ended. And when you do a little bit of math and converting here, because I don't know what Indian rupees are for the most part, I purchased a gift for a friend of mine who was in India. It was like a kind of like a mid-end Dell laptop, and it was around 70,000 rupees. So when I read 500, I thought, huh. And then I actually double checked the laptop that I got just to see, like, did I get some sort of, crazy spec 10 terabytes of RAM laptop or something? And it wasn't. 500 rupees is what you imagine it to be. That is $6.79. So that would be $6.79 for the month. The engineers would be getting $163 a month. $163 a month. Now, I know what you're thinking. The cost of living is lower in India, so this is okay, right? Listen, Lewis, you're out of touch. You live in Brooklyn, you live in Manhattan, you have a studio and apartment in a neighborhood where you walk down the block and people are shooting at each other. You don't get what the prices are in the rest of the world. It's not $2,000 for a studio. I know that. Tell me with a straight face that $6.79 a month for a full-time job manufacturing in India is a salary commensurate with the work being done. $6.79 a month. That's trash. That's complete and utter trash. That's just flagrant disregard for the worker. That's not even disregard. That's just, you're kind of poking them to see how much you can get away with. How much can I get away with before they burn this building down? And, well, I guess now they learned that's the point at which they will burn the building down. And you also have the part where they promised a certain amount, which was over $300 a month, and then they started paying them, the engineers, around $163 a month when they were promised closer to $300 or so. That is also a problem. I have had financial difficulties as a result of COVID this year, and none of my employees have gotten a pay cut. I haven't offered. There's actually one or two people here that I had promised raises to last year that actually got their raises on schedule regardless of COVID. I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm not a millionaire. I'm a thousandaire. Apple's a fucking trillionaire. As a trillionaire, they are hiring subcontractors that pay their staff 50%, sometimes less than what they promise, which is already a joke, and then pay them $6.79 a month. There's no excuse for that. Now, there are many different ways that people have come at this. Eli, the computer guy, in his videos has taken this specific take, and I'll try to paraphrase it, and he can correct me if I'm misinterpreting his take, which is Apple is a company that pretends to really care about racism. They talk about speaking up on racism at WWDC. Tim Cook will really stare at you like it's time to talk about something serious. They'll make sure to update Siri to tell you about Black Lives Matter. They'll update Apple Maps to show the Black Lives Matter writing in the street. But when it comes time to actually care about Black lives or employ Black people to work on or make their products, they will hire slaves, and then when it gets featured in the news, it'll get featured in this propagandistic way where they just show the rioting and the damage without actually telling you the salary levels that led to said rioting. And like most of the Silicon Valley sociopaths that claim to be more moral or more virtuous than you, that are always telling you how much better they are than you and how horrible you are for not sharing their politics, in their own politics, they are literally enslaving people. You know, again, my business does not. I don't have a bunch of videos or insignia on my website with BLM. That being said, when I employ brown people, I don't give them $6 a month, and that's what Eli was getting at in his video, and that is in my opinion quite a valid take. The hypocrisy there is horrific. You know, and several months ago, you had people that were donating who worked at companies like Apple to GoFundMe's for people who were arrested as a result of taking part in protests that would in turn violent, where you would have people that would, let's say, destroy stores that really had nothing to do with the police that were being protested against. Yet when Apple is directly hiring a contractor that lies to their employees and gives them $6 a month instead of their real pay for months on end, and they then destroy that factory, there's silence. Because here, the employee is directly responding to the lies, the aggression, and the enslavement, for lack of a better way to put it, of Apple. And they're just like, no one seems to care, because if they say something, that will affect their actual bottom line. And God forbid that anybody at these companies take a 2% hit off their salary so that they're not dealing with actual slave labor. God forbid they give up any of their stock options so that they're not dealing with actual slave labor. That seemed to be Eli's take, and feel free to correct me if you believe that I've misrepresented him. A lot of that really, I think, is reasonable. Now, the area that I come at it from is the right to repair aspect. What can we get out of this that can further the argument for right to repair?
Here.
Let's just take a look at the salaries now, shall we? So
real quick, let's go back to Eli's take. Eli's take is not just the corporate side of it. It's the actual principle of what Apple is supposedly standing for and actually turning their back on. It's their own hypocrisy, saying that they will stand up for Black lives, pretending, virtue signaling that they care about humanity and human life, that they care about those marginalized people. They'll put it on their stamps and their labels and their stickers. They'll make shirts or whatever. They'll pretend like they're donating to these causes. But when it comes time to actually do something about it, they turn their back and they turn a blind eye to the people that they're actually contributing to, which means they're subcontractors that they're giving work to that are then enslaving others to do that work that ends up going back to Apple. Apple's profiting off of that. And it's not that Apple's profiting off of it that's the problem. The problem is that Apple acts like they care, but then they turn around and employ people like that. They contribute to someone else's ability to keep slaves. And that's what Eli came at it with. Was, hey, Tim Cook, you're an asshole because you're a gay man in America who stands up and says that you care about Black lives, but you don't give a fuck about Indian lives. That's what he's saying. Because it's not like we should only care about lives when they're in America, and that we should only care about slavery when it's in America. Especially when we're on the world stage or a company like Apple that sells around the world. Their duty to humanity and the rest of the world and the earth, the people of earth, is to not allow for people who they engage in business with to have slaves or to use slave labor or to use underpaid workers, underwaged workers, child labor. That's where he was coming at it from, not, hey, it's going to hit their bottom dollar and blah, blah, blah. Yes, they shouldn't be using that slave labor, which will ultimately be coming to those things, but his point was more, you're fucking hypocrites, Apple, because you always say this shit, but when it's time to do something, you don't fucking walk the walk.
I'm not going to speak for all repair shops. There are some that probably pay much more, some that pay much less. I'll just talk for my business, which has been able to be profitable and successful for a long period of time, and also pay something that I think is fair. So if you're someone who is just genuine entry level, you can't really fix stuff, you can't deal with difficult customers, you probationary pay maybe $17 an hour until you get better. If you're a part-time person who just works here a few days a week, again, you can't really you can't do board repair, you can't really do data recovery, you can't deal with very difficult customers, and you're part-time, maybe like in the 17, 18 an hour range. If you're someone who is only capable of reassembling a device, and you can't really do a diagnosis, you're not good at talking to customers, you can't do board repair or anything else, you can just, if I say replace keyboard or battery, you can do that, 20 to 24 an hour. If you're someone that can actually do board repair, and you are able to repair a liquid damaged motherboard, somewhere in the range of, let's say, 25 to 40, depending on your experience level, and all how quickly you work, how well you are able to solve problems that, let's say, I'm not able to solve. Are you an entry-level one, or are you like a Paul? If you're someone who can do advanced data recovery, then again, pretty much similar salary range for that. And there are bonuses commensurate with your ability to provide. So if you have a week where you just kick ass, and or a month where you kick ass and you do a decent job, I do try to give bonuses when possible. And if you're, let's say, someone who can deal with very difficult customers, royal pains in the ass that everybody else would get a 1-star review and a chargeback on, and you can turn that into a 5-star and a tip, you'll probably get somewhere in the 20s to high 20s to 30s for that. Now, that being said, let's go over the salaries that they're paying here. So you have people that are literally destroying factories because they're getting paid, let's say, non-engineering graduate, 8,000 rupees a month. You do the 8,000, that's $108 a month. You have people that are getting paid $6.79 a month. You have engineers getting $163 a month. Now, I think one of the points that needs to be made and really driven home is the fact that when you support Right to Repair, you support a real salary being paid to someone who is not paid so low that they are going to physically destroy their workplace in rage. Whereas when you are purchasing a new product, you are supporting the slave labor crap. Where, again, you have countries like China that will kind of have these wise-ass replies back, where it's not really like they're getting paid a lot better. It's just, again, our slaves don't fight back kind of crap, like what you read at the last paragraph of Bloomberg here. You're probably going to see a lot more of this as time goes on. Because if this is happening when you have a company that's worth $2 trillion, I don't see how there's much excuse for this. I'm not able to show up at, let's say, the company that sells me chipsets. Like, I, as a thousandaire, cannot afford to fly to China every single time I buy a spool of 20 ISL 9239s to see, is the person packaging this making a living wage? I have a good rapport with them, I speak to them on a regular basis, but at the end of the day, that's not really something that I can afford. Someone who has $1 million business, maybe they can afford it. Someone with a multi-million-dollar business with multi-millions in profits, they're at the point where, yeah, you probably should show up maybe once a year or so. They may lie to you, they may screw you over, they may have the person who gets abused at work take the day off or something, but fine. Once you're at the point of being a $2 trillion company, there's really no excuse for you to be this far disconnected, because you have the resources to be able to set up in that country. You have the resources to be able to actually hire your own employees that do nothing but sit in the factory, speak the language of the workers, and speak to the workers and survey the workers to understand what's going on. That would not be anything off of Apple's bottom line. I'm not saying that the 1 or 2 person shop needs to, if they're making $3,000 a month in profit, need to spend $3,000 or $10,000 in a trip to China every single time they buy parts. But a company that's worth $2 trillion can afford to do that. There's no excuse for not knowing that this is happening, and in a way, I think they know it's happening and just kind of don't care. They don't care. Their sales go up. Their shareholders are happy. The customers, for some reason, continue to be happy. The employees are happy, and they get to pretend they care about issues of racial and social injustice. Tim Cook gets to stare at you this way, and he gets to change what Siri says when you enter All Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter, so we can really show what side of the culture war he's on, that he's on the right side of history. while simultaneously paying the brown people that make his products $6 a day. So I do think this is going to continue to happen. I think it will happen more and more and more because we've set a precedent of being okay with a company that's worth $1 to $2 trillion doing it. Yeah, this is not like it's a 1 or 2 person shop that had this problem where they didn't realize the vendor that they were buying 10 chips from on Skype was mistreating his shipping person. This is a company that you would never even notice it in the stock price if they spent a bunch of money to have someone set up there, watch the factory on a 24/7 basis and see what's going on. And they've been getting away with it for the longest of times. And there doesn't really seem to be much interest in getting to the bottom of this. I mean, you have those House Judiciary Committees where the representatives get up there and they pretend to grill Apple and all that, but like nothing ever comes of it. Nothing ever changes. The legislation that gets written winds up getting watered down and fought about for a long period of time until the next crisis comes and everybody forgets about it. And that'll probably happen again and again and again because that's how we do here in America. I think we really do need to point out that when you have a product fixed, you're supporting a business that has a chance at being able to pay a living wage and support their family. Whereas when you are buying a new one, you're supporting this slave labor crap. Because I hear it said all the time that right to repair would hurt jobs and innovation and this, that, and the other. But if you don't buy a new one, if you fix your old one, yes, there may be one lost job in India where one person who used to get $6.79 a month is now getting $0 at the expense of someone in America who used to be working at, I don't know, like Walmart or a gas station for like $9 or $11 an hour, making 17 to 40 or something once they're able to actually do this, or maybe starting their own business. I think we need to focus on the fact that repair creates American jobs that pay considerably better than these other jobs. And we've tried to do the whole manufacturing in America, and it was an absolute fail. Like there was this Foxconn factory, and this I remember Trump talking about making iPhones in America. He got himself a good old photo. He got himself a nice photo op, pretending that he's digging with his shovel and all this. And the amount of jobs that were created here, they said it would have a generation as much as 13,000 jobs. And then when you scroll down, they failed to meet a hiring quota of 520 people. Here it says it has invested less than 10% of the money and employed fewer than a quarter of the 2,080 full-time jobs targeted for the end of 2019, even failing to meet a hiring quota of just 520 people. So they promised as many as 13,000 jobs, and you have less than 520. And it says less than 520. We don't even know where that is. That could be like less than 520 is anywhere between 1 and 520. So they could have 20 people working there. And there were people who were displaced from their residences in order for this factory to be built. There were lots of subsidies. And at the end of the day, when you really look into the subsidies that occurred, Wisconsin probably would have had more economic benefit from me opening a second Ross and Repair there with 5 people than they would have from this factory. These companies treat their workers like shit. They pay their workers like shit. And when they actually pretend to bring jobs to America, it is, as I said, a photo op. And like, regardless of whether you're left or right, you have to admit that this was a complete fucking fail. Again, it makes a nice photo op. It's cool. Look at all, look at the senators and the president and all that digging their own political grave as a result. You could see what the 2020 elections were in Wisconsin as a result of this kind of stuff. We really should be focusing on the fact that repair is a noble job. You're not decreasing jobs, you're increasing the jobs that are going to be available here. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be jobs in India or China, but let India and China's politicians focus on getting jobs in India and China, and let's have our American politicians focus on making jobs in America. Repair in America is a better job for the American citizen than a $6.
Yes, but let's all over the world not allow for us to engage anyone across the world to engage in slavery or practices that seem very close to slavery. Let's do that, regardless of what nation we're from and who we're trying to make economically more viable jobs for. Besides any of that, we can't allow slavery to happen anywhere in the world. How about that?
A month job in China. They pay better and they support a better living standard for the American family. And I think that this is a point that needs to be pushed as often as humanly possible. Rather than this fake pie in the sky dream that Foxconn is actually...
No, the point point is that if you're going to be in America buying these American products like Apple offers to you, you better understand how they're being created and who you're actually contributing to, because then in turn Apple is taking your money and giving it to some other subcontractor who is engaging in this slavery-like behavior. That's what you need to understand as an American, whether you have better jobs, no jobs, right to repair, anything like that. That doesn't really negate the fact that this trillion-dollar company is enabling slavery.
Going to manufacture things in America and create all these jobs. Let's take the people who are already creating jobs in America and allow them to create more. So when it comes to expanding as a business, and I want to follow up on this with a video on why I haven't expanded my business, because I get asked this all the time. One of the things that keeps me from doing so is not being aware if my industry will even be here next year. It makes me very hesitant to invest more money or more time into the business. Even when I moved to a new store, that wasn't so much expansion so much as it was I was already cramming 2,400 square foot of stuff into a 600 square foot store. And, you know, if I didn't move, well, who knows, maybe my staff would have been bashing everything at some point. I probably would have too. It was driving us crazy to be in a small space for so long. I am not comfortable investing more into a business when there's a good chance that it may not exist 6 months to a year from now. And my business, when I talk about it not existing, I'm not talking about because I can't afford to exist, or I don't have the know-how to exist, or I'm not able to adapt and learn. I'm talking about a company just flipping a switch in their operating system that results in 90 or 100 of my screens that I paid about $100 for at the time just no longer working. And I did a video on that. I think it was Fuck Apple Part 2 or Fuck Apple Part 3 a few years ago. I'm talking about when I asked my supplier to buy a CD3217 chip or an ISO 9240 so I could do the exact same work that I've been doing for over 7 years on the 2019 or 2020 laptop, and they say, you know, we're just not able to get that. We can't get that for you. I'm able to diagnose that this chip is the problem. I have the money to pay for that chip, and I have the inventory and means at work and the inventory system to be able to, you know, catalog and tag it and everything, but I can't get it. I cannot feel comfortable reinvesting the profits of the business into growing the business and having more jobs and more people that are paid these rates rather than the garbage Wistron salaries when I'm not comfortable that this will remain a viable industry. And I kind of wonder how many other people in the industry are thinking the same. You know, I have one store, maybe I'll start 3 or 5, but I don't know if Apple's going to try to serialize more stuff than just a camera next year. I don't know if they're going to lock me out of this. Maybe I should take my profits, roll it into ICLN and run, then actually reinvest it into the business so that I'm not out. Because when you're reinvesting your profits into a business, you're not seeing the returns immediately. You'll see the returns in 6 months or a year or 2 years. And if you make the wrong investment, as I have in the past, what happens is you never see it again. If you reinvest it into a section of the business that winds up failing, that's $50,000 down the drain. Maybe more. You may lose actually more than what you had invested if the rest of your business goes downhill with it. And imagine what it would be like. Imagine how many more repair jobs would exist if right to repair were a thing, if our industry were legitimized rather than scorned and marginalized. I think we need to stop accepting the premise of assholes, and this is something that I've discussed in an older video. This is a problem here, because when they say that they are creating jobs and right to repair is going to destroy the jobs that are created and blah, 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 we'll often respond and say, no, that's not true. We should stop accepting that premise entirely. No, right to repair creates jobs in America that can pay living wages. The jobs that you create cause factories to get burned down in other countries when your slave labor revolts against you. It's not about them not making enough money, because we've proven with Apple, it doesn't matter how much money you make. As much money as you make in the world, you're still going to try to use slaves. So we have to take away this talking point. We have to take away this idea, this concept that in some way, shape, or form, advocating for right to repair is going to mean that there's going to be less jobs. If there are going to be less jobs making new stuff because we're fixing the old stuff, and the jobs making new stuff pay $6 a month, you know what? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe those jobs should fuck off and go away and make way for the actual living wage jobs that repair shops like mine are able to create in the United States of America for people that learn this skill set and are willing to do the work and actually have that dignity at the end of the day after they've solved a few PM sleep S4Ls that can actually afford to go to a restaurant or have an apartment or pretty much do anything that you can do when you make more than $6 a month. Before we end the video, I just wanted to make sure to include a message from our sponsor. We only have one sponsor on this channel, always have, always likely will, which is myself, because nobody else wants to sponsor the shit. So if you go to store.rossmangroup.com, you can buy an ISL 9239 charging chip, which was a crappily made picture that I put together with my webcam. You can buy a CD3215 when they're actually in stock. I'm going to kick down the balls for that one. You can buy an Atten hot air rework station. We have Atten hot air rework stations here for $253.99. They're excellent products. You have this great picture of Paul on the front page of the website. Everybody loves Paul. You can buy multimeter probes that are really, really thin so that you can measure the individual pins on a QFN without having to worry about shorting stuff. You can buy genuine, authentic Amtech flux. You have a picture of me over here when I had more black hair. You can buy the Touch Bar FPC connector, the MacBook Air audio board connector. That thing burns out all the time. Those are beautiful connectors that you can get here. There's all sorts of connectors you can get. You can get the USB-C connector for when it gets liquid damage in the side of the machine. We sell all sorts of stuff that'll help you fix iPhones and MacBooks on store.rossmangroup.com, and every dollar you spend at store.rossmangroup.com goes directly to rossmangroup.com. So help support our sponsors, which are pretty much, sponsor, the only sponsor that's ever going to actually support this content, because when you talk about all the topics that I talk about and the New York City real estate and the vaccine shit and this and that and the other, you don't usually have NVIDIA and AMD reaching out to you saying, please take our money. So that's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. Have a good day. Have a good holiday, everyone. And I'll see you in the next video.
Thanks, Lewis. And thanks for coming to smoke a blunt with me. Much appreciated. Y'all have a good time out there. Be safe.